you've got the added insult, in my opinion, of AI bans. I hate it. I really do.
There's the famous story about Skid Row taking Pantera on tour with him. Ozzy Osbourne taking Metallica on tour with him. Those were moments where the torch was handed down. You don't see a lot of that nowadays. And I think that definitely hurts the pipeline of potential headliners that could be enough of a draw to fill out a 50,000 capacity outdoor venue or headline a festival and ensure that festival is sold out. Do you think Bloodstock is starting to reach that point now where there are certain festivals where the festival sells off its name and off its reputation, and you could probably shift at least 50% of your capacity before you've even announced a headliner? Do you think Bloodstock is at that point now?
I would never be as bold to sort of say yes, because I think if we just sort of sit back and go, well, it sells itself, you're kind of taking your foot off the pulse with it a little bit.
Welcome to Into the Necrosphere.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Part of the reason I reached out to you was because I saw an exchange on Reddit where you were being raked over the coals somewhat, and I think I said to you before we hit record, I think we've both had a very interesting week. But I wanted to start by asking you, for a festival at this scale and of this size, you are now, by my count, roughly about 6 weeks out from showtime. Yeah. What does, at this stage of the cycle, what does an average day look like for you?
Very much crossing I's, dotting T's. Planning wise, we tend to do that kind of a year in advance. So we're already talking on 27 now. So it tends to be conversations with security, conversations with the site team, the build team, power, medical, fire, just making sure you've kind of got everything nailed down. The bars, I've had meetings with the bars today. Is that all sort of locked in, ready to go? Anything we need to do, anything we need to get? And then kind of looking really at what relative improvements we're sort of bringing this year, and are they in situ, ready to go? Any different activities. So it's all that finishing up element, and there's a lot more to it than you think. You think, well, I'll have an hour or two at that, and then before you know it, it's the end of the day. So it's interesting, to say the least.
Are you getting time to work out at least? Because I know from your socials, you hit the weights pretty hard. So is there enough time in the day to for yourself?
No, not a minute. But that's probably the same for every promoter, I guess. As they get close to the festival. This week, to be honest, with the weather being so hot, I've just taken the week off, and it's just come at an opportune time really for that. So yeah, you don't really kind of know really from day one to day two what's going to be thrown at you. What different challenges or obstacles or not saying issues, but things that need sorting out. So it's always the same every year. 25 years in, you don't have the same year. Each year it always differs.
What has changed the most about putting on the festival and about the challenges that you deal with over the last 3 or 4 years? If we say, let's say post-COVID, what are the things that have changed the most, and what are the things that have become harder than they were before?
I would guess really from COVID, post-COVID, is cost. It's the biggest single impact every festival, every event's having. We're getting hit so hard when it comes to infrastructure costs. They're jumping up on average 30-35% a year. And that's not sustainable for a long period of time. And you can't increase your prices by 30-35% a year to compensate. So it's a forever balancing act. And when you're bringing, as any greenfields festival would be doing, a small town into an empty field, you've got to bring everything. The venue wise, they've got the bricks and mortar. It's not so difficult. I'm not saying it's not difficult, not so difficult. But those costs at the moment are next level. They really are. And that's the same, we're seeing that, for band fees, we're seeing that for infrastructure costs. Every aspect, sort of facet of the festival is just going up in price, and it's, when's it going to stop?
I was going to say, it feels to me, if I read a lot of interviews and watch a lot of interviews with other promoters, it does feel like we're reaching a tipping point where it might potentially become financially unsustainable, or at the very least where you have absolutely no choice but to put up ticket prices, which then causes you the additional grief of people turning around and calling you greedy, when in reality, as you just pointed out now, a 35% increase is, I mean, that is a serious hit to take.
Well, most festivals will run, the math generally tends to be 90-95% sellout before you turn a profit. And if you're sort of looking at those kind of numbers, and then you sort of getting yourself hit with these, extortionate costs, and there's lots of factors driving those costs up. The global wars that we're having, the oil prices going up, fuel prices going through the roof. I mean, our fuel prices this year to last year, we've had to budget for double because of the impact of the current war. And when you're running generators for a week and everything else, that's a lot of fuel going through. So it's kind of big hits, really, and I think it is unsustainable. You only have to look at where the UK is today with the independent festivals. There's been, I think it's about since COVID, 100 and 200 or whatever. I can't think of the number at the minute, but it's hundreds of festivals we've lost in the UK. The UK predominantly has been the hub of festivals, globally, and we're getting hit hard as a country. So either the government's got to do something. I know there's a battle going on trying to get a 5% VAT for sort of festivals at the moment, and that's being pushed back by the government. So that's not kind of working out as it is. But there's just costs coming in everywhere. So unless you've got a pretty solid backing or model, I'd hate to be somebody starting a festival today. I mean, going in eyes open, it'd be really tough unless you've got some serious backing. So it's a challenging market, I would say, to say the least.
Just now, a big chunk of my audience is actually outside of the UK. So just for the folks that don't necessarily know the legend, I mean, I arrived in the UK in 2002, so I've kind of seen the festival, develop and grow and evolve, and it's incredible to see it get bigger and bigger every single year. But just give me a quick summary and a snapshot of your involvement with the festival, how it came about, because I think it's a very interesting story. I think it's not the average festival, guy decides to start a festival story.
No. Well, back in 2000, my dad was basically in a pub chatting to some friends, and they're all into the music, heavy metal and everything else. Download didn't exist, Monsters Rock had finished, and they were just saying, there's no way you can really go to sort of see collections of bands other than a gig that, as and when they pop up. And one of them said to my dad, you should start a festival. And my dad, unfortunately, he's one of those kind of people that just goes, yeah, okay. He's an artist, so he paints pictures. He's done album covers for Saxon since 1984 and lots of Lord of the Rings stuff and lots more. And he basically thought, well, okay, went down to the Assembly Rooms in Derby, booked a date for the following year, not a clue what we were doing or what he was doing. Got into partnership with a friend of his called Vince Brotheridge, and basically just started the festival. And it was a one-day thing back then. We were all, as his kids, I think I was doing dressing rooms and off down to Asda, the local Asda, to buy all the riders and all that type of stuff. My sisters were doing the merch, so we kind of had a level of involvement from day one. And he had a good friendship with Biff at Saxon because he'd been doing the album covers for years, and basically just gave him a call and said, any chance you could just do me a favor? And God knows how, Biff just went, yeah, okay. It was like that, and Bloodstock was born. So first one, there was about 700 or just under 700 people attended that, and there was no internet really back then to the levels of today. So everything was adverts in papers and leaflets and flyers and God knows what. And then it kind of grew and grew. And over the sort of the next 5 years, it was selling out the indoor at sort of 2,500. And then he just thought, well, let's go outdoors. And we did that in 2005. And it's kind of grown from there. Vince stepped back around about 2006 for family commitments, at which point, my sisters and myself stepped up and sort of used our own skill sets and kind of fuddled our way through. But starting an event with not a clue what we were doing. I'm not saying we know now, but you muddle through, don't you?
Yeah,
and you learn on the way. You learn through your own mistakes. So yeah, it's been a tough journey. We never turned a profit for 12, 13 years. So when you're sort of doing a festival, you've got your houses on the line, and you've got a stubborn belief it'll work. And it did. So we're thankful to be where we are today.
That's quite extraordinary, though. Not being in a position where you're actually making a profit for over a decade. What kept you going year after year? You kind of hinted at having a belief that it would work, but what was the impetus for you to say, let's give it another try, let's see if we can make it work this year?
Optimism, blind optimism. I don't think there's anything more to it. I think we knew from the fans that they were coming, they were enjoying it. It was more about getting that word further out than the populace of what we had. There was a word of mouth element that was working, and that was working well, and it was growing every year. But because you're sort of balancing the costs versus the amount of people that turn up and buy tickets, the band fees and everything else, you've got to kind of stick with it and believe it'll work. I think everybody thinks that you just put a festival on and it's kind of that Wayne's World moment, book the band and they will come, and if it was that easy, everybody would be doing it. And we could have thrown the towel in 2 years in, 5 years in, 8 years in, but we said, no, come on, this is going to come good. This is going to work. And we were told by some industry heads that, just it's not going to happen. It's not going to work. And that kind of made us a little bit more stubborn. And we just kind of, sort of knuckled down and sort of pulled on the skill sets that we all had individually. And with family, you can swear a lot more than you can do in the normal workplace at each other. So it kind of worked as a dynamic, bizarrely. Rachel does a lot of hard work back end with budgets and, organising a lot of the infrastructure, etc. Vicky's just a whiz at booking the bands, and with myself, I sort of support Rachel in what she's doing and the marketing and partnerships and lots of other bits and bobs. So yeah, it works. Then we've got a great event, I think.
You are a bit of a jack of all trades. I mean, you're involved in everything from brand activation. I know you do some of the booking. You literally do everything. And you've also been, interestingly, probably one of the most visible promoters that, I can't think of off the top of my head of a single promoter of a festival of this size that is actually more visible and more engaged with a community.
Well, I believe it's always been about transparency. You can go to an event and as a punter, and generally they've no idea who runs the show. They might know it's a corporation of some sort, or a business or whatever, but very rarely do you sort of get to sort of speak to the promoters and see the promoters. There is a couple of events as ourselves, and Stone Dead Festival, that's another one in the Midlands. They're sort of very visible as organisers, which is great. And I just think that the fans want to know who they're dealing with, who they're parting the money for. So we've never shied away from getting involved and talking. And if we see someone's got a gripe with something, let's chat about it. Let's have that conversation, because it's too easy just to hide behind the name of the brand and not get involved. When we're at the festival, we're not sitting in an office backstage, fingers crossed, hope this works out this weekend. We're walking around the campsites, we're walking through the car parks, we're walking around the arena, backstage, everywhere else, because we want that experience to feel something that we'd really enjoy. So if we're out there and we're enjoying it, then we're pretty confident the fans are enjoying it. If we see something that isn't working right, or that's a problem, let's fix it there and then while we're out and about. Because I'd rather do it, or we'd rather do it at the weekend, and then not have a come Monday morning. Well, if that hadn't happened, or if this has happened, or if you changed this, if it's not working, let's just change it. So it's about being visible. It's about making sure people can engage and can talk, and feel as though they're empowered to do so. It's their festival as much as ours.
And it's incredible what that personal connection actually means. If you think about it just as a marketing or a branding tool, and I'm not saying that that's what you do it for. The impression I get is that there's a genuine sincerity behind it, but even as a way to make somebody connect with a brand, relating an experience that I had, I met Dana White of the UFC in 2007. And it was at UFC 75 at the O2 Arena. And he was just walking around and saying hello to a couple of people. And he stopped and I said hello to him. And, he heard my accent and he said, "Where are you from?" I said, "I'm from South Africa." He ended up talking to me for about 15 minutes, just asking about, what is the martial arts culture like in South Africa? And then after the conversation, patted me on the back, said, "Enjoy the fights, big dog." He was interested in who I thought was going to win the main event, all that sort of stuff. But that exchange stayed with me forever. And the thing I learned from that, and I've applied it to the podcast as well. And again, there has to be authenticity behind it. You can't do it with the selfish intent of trying to grow a brand or grow a business. But when people engage and when they interact with you, if you make them feel positive about that exchange, they will never forget it, and they will turn into, it is kind of that step-by-step, brick-by-brick approach. They'll turn into an advocate for life.
Yeah. I think that's the important thing, and you're absolutely right with how sort of Dana treated you. I think that's commendable from him. It's commendable from you that you gave him that opportunity to talk and engage, because people can be very judgmental before they know somebody and before they talk. And when any business is doing something, there's always a kind of a blind, I guess, skepticism of whether this is an honest conversation, or, as you said, whether this is a brand building exercise. If something happens to the festival or somebody doesn't get a great experience, that does actually impact us personally. We don't just go, oh, there's been another complaint, oh, never mind, but because we've had 20,000 people and we've had 5 or 10 complaints, on the numbers schemes, that's nothing. One complaint is one complaint too many. So it's about looking at that complaint, what went wrong, is it something we can fix? It's difficult sometimes because running an event, especially, every event gets this, you're selling 20,000 tickets to 20,000 different personalities. You don't know those personalities that are coming through until they turn up. So if somebody does act a bit of a fool, a bit of an idiot, yes, we can deal with it once we find out at that point. Very difficult to deal with it beforehand. So you've kind of got to be in that element a little bit reactive, but we do try and promote the fact that we do have a zero tolerance approach to certain elements of society. And if we do see something, we'll deal with it. But sometimes, we drop the ball. We're not going to pretend to be perfect. We're not, but we learn. And I think that's the important thing. If we can all learn something from, everyday events, and it makes us better people.
Well, the thing that I think people also have to appreciate is you mentioned an audience of 20,000. You think of 20,000, a crowd of 20,000, plus all the bands, plus all of the infrastructure. The scale of the points of failure in that dynamic is so massive. I think the vast majority of people couldn't cope with the stress, quite honestly. And I'm not sure that enough people actually put themselves in the position where they understand what you guys are a small team, as I understand it. Yeah. What you guys go through trying to make the event as seamless and as positive as you possibly can. But with the best will in the world, controlling 20,000 plus points of failure is a nigh on impossible task.
Especially when they've been drinking.
Yeah, exactly. And the sun's beating down.
Exactly. Yeah, everything's going against you. But no, look, it's generally the metal audiences are brilliant. They're accommodating, they're lovely, they're friendly. It's very much the never judge a book by its cover scenario. I mean, playing itself out perfectly. But inevitably, you can get the odd bad apple in any barrel, and sometimes if that does happen, we'll deal with it. But I've got to say, in 24 festivals or 24 years of festivals, I think we've probably thrown out half a dozen people maybe that have been asked to go home, which I think in those kind of numbers is exceptional. Yeah. If somebody does misbehave, there's a conversation to have and we'll deal with it. But no, generally the audiences are fantastic, as are the bands and everybody else.
I definitely feel the metal community at large, we're a group of very diverse and very different people, and we think in very different ways. We have differences across basically every sphere of society, but we're a very accepting crowd for the most part. I think there's a contingent of people that aren't necessarily that way, but if I take my wife as an example, she doesn't listen to metal, had never heard a distorted guitar before we got together, and I can take her to I take her with me to Fortress Festival, for instance. She'll dress as somebody who's, very clearly not of the scene, and will never get a bad look. Everyone's always friendly, and that's bands we meet, and just people generally at the show. I mean, I've had her with me at a Destroyer 666 show. People were, everyone was super friendly to her. She met KK, even he was really nice to her. So,
no, I'm in the same position. My wife, obviously we've been together 25 years, 26 years now. Sorry, and. This is not her music scene at all. Doesn't listen to metal. She's very much into sort of the pop and that type of stuff. Comes to Bloodstock every single year because I make her work it for me. She looks after our accessible patrons and does a fantastic job doing that. And to be honest with you, again, exactly that. Doesn't dress as though she's going into a metal show. Dresses in her, I don't want to say normal because that sort of means we're not normal, but in everyday kind of clothes that you'd see somebody walking down the street and that you'd say they're not associated to metal, maybe. Not trying to typecast anything here. but again, you're exactly that. She can walk around, and I'm happy to have her walking around and my kids walking around without ever any fear of anything happening. You know, it's probably one of the safest environments I think that anybody could attend as you know, a show or a gig or a festival, whatever it may be. And you're probably the same as me. You've done quite a few over the years. And sometimes you go to an event, you think, well, you can feel a bit of an atmosphere. You don't get that at metal gigs. You get everybody. I think the only atmosphere you tend to feel is excitement and fun and togetherness, and you know, and that's brilliant. That's what we love. That's how it should be.
100%. During those formative years and when things were financially challenging, what is the closest that you came, or that you as a collective came, to throwing in the towel and saying, okay, I think that's the last one?
I don't get into trouble for saying this. I think, you know, we went through 1 year, we came out the other end with best part of £250,000 worth of debt, you know, and you kind of look at it at that point as a family, and you're not backed by any sort of corporate or anything else. You're carrying that debt yourself. It's how you then manage that, you know, and credit to Rachel and my dad's partner, Ruth. They're great when it comes to playing with a calculator, you know, and they sort of put a plan together and we stuck to it, and we sort of fought through it and carried on. And you know, nowadays that's not the position we're in. We're in a much better position to reinvest back into the show. But you know, it's scary. It's scary, very scary times when you're sort of looking at the bank balance, and it's like, well, those costs are still going up. You know, how do we close that gap? And it was that perseverance and I guess doggedness of not giving up that kind of saw us through. So you know, it's like anybody that kind of gets hit financially is always going to be worried, because you don't want to lose your house. You don't want to. You know, my wife, to be honest with you, for the first few years, was not a fan of what we were doing or what I was doing, because, you know, we all had normal day jobs, 9-to-5 jobs. We didn't just sort of finish work 25 years ago and start putting a festival on. It's you're working 9 to 5 or 6 days a week sometimes, and then in evenings and weekends you're trying to put a festival on. So it was detracting away from any kind of family social circle or life that we had at that time earlier on, because you're kind of juggling everything. So yeah, it was tough. It was hard. You know, it's your relationships at risk, your house is at risk, your financial future's at risk. It takes a certain type of person to sort of look at that and think, yeah, go on, it'll be all right. But my dad is a bit like that. He's kind of, yeah, it'll be fine. And we just believed him. So yeah, get on with it.
I was going to ask you, you've referenced him quite a lot now, but how big of an influence has your father been on you personally, and in the way you approach life, and now in the way that you approach putting on the festival year after year?
Well, first and foremost, there wouldn't be a festival if he hadn't actually took the bull by the horns and decided he was doing it. Bloodstock wouldn't exist. So that credit, you know, sits squarely on his and Vince's shoulders by a country mile. But the way he is in life generally is don't give in, don't give up. You know, take that risk. Took that. You know, it's like he said. He did an interview once. He just said, you know, life would be very boring, wouldn't it, if you didn't take risks? You just kind of wake up, eat, go to sleep, and eventually die. He said, what kind of life's that? You know, he wants to sort of be able to get to that point, knowing there's a legacy that's being left. And I think when you look at the impact it's had over the last 24, 25 years on people's lives, whether that's be people have met at the festival, had weddings at the festival, through people that have met previous years, you know, those memories and those connections alone are worth everything that we've done. You know, it's amazing to sort of see and be part of that. And I've done lots of interviews and people say to me, oh, what's been your best sort of thing at the festival? And I do the same thing every year. I tend to take a walk up on stage just from the wings and look out at an audience where you can see the headliner come on. And it's just knowing that you've been part of something that's pulled all these people together to actually celebrate something really cool, you know, and bringing these bands to the festival. So yeah, it's just such an emotional roller coaster. But without my dad, that kind of wouldn't happen. And he's still that influence now. He's just got that can-do attitude. He doesn't know how, but he just knows it can be done. So it's down to us to find a way, and he's got that driving force behind us all.
He picks the destination. You just need to figure out how to get there.
Pretty much, yeah.
When you think of the Bloodstock community, is that something that because they are incredibly passionate and they are incredibly engaged, did you set out to deliberately engineer that? Is it something that you deliberately wanted to kind of cultivate and foster with a festival?
We actually wanted a festival that we'd enjoy going to. So our ethos has been from day one, by the fans, for the fans, and we kind of coined that, you know, in the early years of Bloodstock. I've heard other festivals kind of, you know, grab it since, but it was a Bloodstock phrase for a long, long time, but with meaning. So it was something that we felt very, very passionate about, that we're fans of the music, we enjoy heavy metal, we enjoy rock. To be able to build something that so many people adore and love, and be part of that community ourselves, meant something. It's not, and from the earlier conversation, it's never been about the money. Because if it was, we'd never have done it, and we wouldn't have kept with it. It was very much around a passion project that we believed that we had something really cool. We were building something very special, and the community themselves, you're absolutely right, they're very diverse, very, very passionate, very, very opinionated, very, very intelligent. And I think that's what separates the metal and heavy rock community from probably most other genres of music fans. There's so much intricacy behind your average metal fan. And you talk to a metal fan at a show, you've got a completely new level of intelligence. It's like Mensa level for a lot of these guys and girls. They're amazing. So I think to be sort of part of that and that level of engagement is just a beautiful thing.
What do you think when not just the Bloodstock community, but people generally, when it comes to their perception of festivals? When I see some of the feedback that comes back for various festivals, there was, for example, some negative feedback that came around about MDF, and I have my views on whether that's valid or whether that's not valid. But what do you think people get wrong about festivals most often, and people that have never experienced that process of putting one on, dealing with the logistics that you have to deal with?
Times have changed over the years. If you go back to the very first festivals that kind of happened, Glastonbury early years, along with many others, Woodstock, etc., it was never about the luxuries of life when you're going to live at a festival. It wasn't about posh camping. It was about roughing it, turning up into a field, listening to some bands, meeting new people, all about loving everybody. And it was just kind of a break away from society and that freedom that everybody wants to get a taste of now and again, because we live by so many rules, don't we, in society generally. Over the decades, that has kind of changed. People expect a lot more, and as event organizers, we're aware of that. We've got to sort of deliver that. But I think people need to understand there is a rawness to festivals. That's the exciting part. It isn't always about plush showers and fancy sort of living quarters or anything else. Sometimes it's just about being there, being in the moment. And there's so many fans that do that so well, it's lovely. And I'll be honest with you, I would probably struggle to camp for 3 or 4 days, if I'm brutally honest. I'm getting old a bit now. But they do it with grace, they do it with dignity, they do it so well. And it's lovely to see those people when they get together. We had it when we came back from COVID, and it was the first festival back, and we opened the gates to let people through at kind of 10 in the morning. And as they're entering the arena, they were literally hitting the floor and kissing it as they came back. It's that feeling of home. I think that we can, as event organizers, we can create if we're passionate enough about it. But the times have changed. The expectations are a lot higher. It'd be nice to be able to go back to that rawness of living in the moment. Some people do, but generally, I think the expectations differ these days.
Why do you think the expectations have changed?
I think there's so many more complications in life with people, and they want to, have that break away from society and everything else, but they want to do it in style, and there's an expectation that we can deliver everything for everybody, and it's very, very difficult to do. It's the same when you're booking bands. I think Vicky and Simon have a really tough job, booking the bands. I book the odd one here and there. They book pretty much 99% of the lineup, and getting that right is bloody difficult, because it's not just, okay, we'll book band A, B, C, D, and E. Well, you might be able to book band A, but B, C, D, and E, they're either touring, they're in the studio, they're in a different part of the world, they don't want to do the show, they're too expensive. You've got all of these different things to manage and worry about and put together, but you've still got to put together, and every festival's the same, a lineup that's appealing. You can't strictly build it around headliners and then sort of fill it with, it's kind of, I don't say mediocre bands, because no band's mediocre, but lesser known bands underneath all the time. Yeah. It's very much around the quality of that overall lineup that's going to create that sort of context. So I think because of that, there's an expectation we can kind of book whoever you want. We can deliver the show as you want it with all the sort of glory that comes with it. But, sometimes that isn't possible, because you're trying to balance everybody's needs, and everybody's needs differ. So you've got to try and find a happy medium that works for everybody. Some people are going to be elevated into a better position. Other people might have to sort of think, well, okay, no, it'll do. But it's finding that mediocre ground that kind of fits everybody, really.
Do you think Bloodstock is starting to reach that point now where, but there are certain festivals where the festival sells off its name and off its reputation, and you could probably shift at least 50% of your capacity before you've even announced a headliner? Do you think Bloodstock is at that point now?
I would never be as bold to sort of say yes, because I think if we just sort of sit back and go, well, it sells itself, you're kind of taking your foot off the pulse with it a little bit, you know. And I think it's very important that we stay connected to the fan base and understand what they want, who they want to see. So, you know, we're forever trawling the forums, you know, through the social media and everything else. It's just to sort of see and understand who they want to see, who's the band that people are really sort of after. It's very important that we do it and we do it well. We've created something over the last 8 or 9 years where we tend to announce bands at the festival for the following year. Because we think if we're going to put tickets on sale straight away, it wouldn't be great if the fans actually have an idea of where they're spending the money and not just, you know, taking a bet or taking a gamble, which so often happens. So, for example, for 2027, Vicky and Simon have pulled together effectively 27 bands to announce for 2027, including the headliners, the special guests, you know, a big chunk of the sort of top end of the bill. And we've become synonymous for doing that. So it's kind of building that value. We've sold out for the last 3 years, with the last 2 being incredibly fast. I think 2 years ago, we sold out 9 weeks after the previous festival. Last year, we sold out 7 weeks after the previous festival.
Wow.
Fantastic. We're doing it in 5 weeks this year, but we'll see. You know, it's down to, you know, whether the bands think that what we put together is strong enough for them to think, yeah, I want to go. And they've had a good time this year. So it'd be nice to have that iconic status. Glastonbury and some of those historic festivals do have that element of being able to do that without booking of bands. But I'm just a big believer, and I think we as a team, we're big believers in giving the fans at least a taste of the delivery for the following year before they're having to part with their money.
And I do think there's a distinction again between heavy metal crowds and crowds that would go to a festival like Glastonbury. I hate to generalize, but my sense is that Glastonbury is not really a festival for not for music fans that have the level of dedication to a certain style of music that maybe you or I, certainly anybody listening to this podcast would have. And so I definitely see your point there in that, I mean, Glastonbury could put on not necessarily any old crap, but they could put on, you know, a lot of very mediocre year today, gone tomorrow pop music. I don't necessarily think any major metal festival could get away with that. Certainly not for more than a year.
No. I mean, there's festivals that sell, you know, across Europe very well. You know, Hellfest do it great. They put on, always known for putting on a strong lineup. They'll sell out.
Every single band performing on the face of the earth plays at Hellfest. So.
Pretty much, yeah. You know, back in Germany, again, do a great job and you know, always deliver. And I think for the UK, if Bloodstock can be considered that festival that sort of delivers, then fantastic. But we, you know, for us, it's important that we try to ensure that we do deliver and we don't just sort of take people's money and put on a mediocre show, because that might be fine for the first year that you sold out and people have partnered with the money and you've got the money in the bank, they bought the tickets, but it's what happens the following year and the year after that. So it's all about the delivery on the weekend and making sure that value for money goes. I mean, we sold out last year. I said we'd announced Friday night, Saturday night and Sunday night because it's our 25th anniversary. We sold out 7 weeks later. We then decided after we'd sold out, you know what? It's our 25th anniversary. Let's open the main stage on Thursday and let's book some more bands. You know, we didn't have to do that. The money was in the bank. You know, it's kind of, you don't need to add extra cost. But then when you're opening another stage, you've got all the crews, the lighting crews, the power, the bands, the backstage, the dressing rooms, the artist liaison, everything's got to kick in a day earlier. And that comes again at significant cost. So we've kind of reinvested that money back into the show to give the fans a bigger delivery for our 25th anniversary.
Yeah, yeah. Just on the topic of booking bands, again, I don't think that people appreciate just how political that can be. I've had a taste of it seeing some other promoters in action, but I mean, just the exclusivity clauses, the duplicity around that. I mean, I deal with contract management almost every single day of my life at my job, and it really is an absolute nightmare to wade through some of those things. So if you're having, I mean, how many acts total will you have this year?
We'll have 135 between the stages.
135 sets of contracts. negotiate with, by the way, and again, this is just reality, people that are pretty ego driven. That's a tall order.
People with expectations, I'd say.
let's say, people with high expectations. Yeah. That's a tall order.
Yeah, it's look, that you can say no to things. If you're trying to go, as an artist, you're going to go and do a show. You want as much value from that show as you can do. There's no issue with a festival or an event saying, we can do that, but we can't do that. And then you enter then a negotiation and find some happy ground that everyone's happy with. I think it's all about communication and making sure that you're clear and concise from the outset. Because the last thing you want to do is promise something and then you don't get that delivery. The artist gets in a bad mood on the show. You don't get the best out of the artist, and that performance isn't something the fans remember. So it's important for us that we make sure that we're crystal clear with everything that we agree. That's all in writing. Everybody's fully aware, and then we deliver on that promise to make sure that everybody's happy. And it's making sure the artists are kept super happy when they arrive as well. Whether you're playing on the New Blood stage, whether you're playing on the main stage, you'll get treated exactly the same way. And I think it's important to do that, because those artists on the New Blood stage someday will probably be on the main stage, and we want them to remember how well they were treated with us.
Well, I wanted to ask you about that, because I think Bloodstock has done an extraordinary amount for new bands, up and coming bands, and for the metal scene generally. Certainly here in the UK, but I think that influence has spread globally. How have you seen the metal landscape evolve in the UK since Bloodstock started, and as it's evolved and gotten bigger? And what part do you feel Bloodstock has played in that evolution happening?
Good questions. We've heard iconic rock bands say that metal's dead, and there's no longevity and there's no life in it or anything else, and I couldn't disagree more if I tried. I think the music scene, and certainly the metal scene in the UK and Europe and further afield, is absolutely on fire. I think there's a lot of bands out there that are playing in the garages and small venues that just need that opportunity to be seen. I mean, we have, with Metal to the Masses, and we've been doing Metal to the Masses in its current guise since 2006, although it started in 2003, sorry. That's kind of grown massively, because when we started that, Paul, my dad's, his vision was for something super clean, super transparent. Simon Hall came on board in 2006, and he had a challenge ahead of him at that time, because there were so many pay-to-plays and vote, picking, all that kind of stuff with text and everything else, and it was a really dirty field. So when he started talking with the venues, and they had this whole concept about it's got to be super transparent, the bands aren't allowed to pay anything, the bands are not allowed to sell, you're not allowed to say to the band, right, you've got to sell me 50 tickets or anything else like that. That's not the deal. You're signing up to be part of a super clean, super new program that is honest, and all the band's got to do is turn up and put on a damn good show. That's it. That's all the band's got to do. And then for that, they've got to have some kind of opportunity to step up. So, over a few years, Simon worked really hard at that. All the support from us, because we believe that was something that we needed to do. Putting on the New Blood stage costs us an absolute fortune. It's a cost to the festival. It doesn't make us any money. But it's something that we believe so strongly in, because if we don't put bands into that top of that funnel, eventually it's going to dry up and nothing's going to come out. And when bands decide, right, I'm done touring, I've had enough, who's next? Who's picking up that mantle? So what we tend to do, Metal to the Masses will run for 6 months each year. Roughly 600 to 700 bands go through that process, right, each year, and we whittle that down to the best part of just over 30 that will then come and play at the festival. Now, the ones that don't get through that year, we've seen it where they've gone through the same process 3, 4, 5 times and then got through. And we don't want Bloodstock to be the end game. That's not the point. Bloodstock is a stepping stone to that next level, and that's how it has to be. So it's very much important for the band that they recognise that this is nothing more than an opportunity to get to that next step. We'll put them in front of press, we'll put them in front of agents, managers, labels, the fans, more importantly, and it's their opportunity to sell themselves on, probably at that point in their career, probably their biggest opportunity. It's not what we do, it's what they do, and it's how they do it. Simon will then follow those bands over the next sort of year or two, and we'll see who's sort of making waves and who's making a bit of progress, who's doing a tour with somebody else, and where they're going. And then what we'll do is we'll invite them back and elevate them onto the next high stage, and then let's sort of keep that momentum going for them. And we've had bands that have gone through the outset from Metal to the Masses, Sophie stage, that have then opened up and sort of been higher up on the bill on the main stage, and that's brilliant. That's the point. That's the point of making that happen. So we'll keep doing that for as long as there's an appetite for it. And these shows are selling out. If you're a venue running Metal to the Masses, you're having sold out heats, sold out finals. That's great for the venue. It's great for the fans, because there's an opportunity to discover something new. So it's proof in the pudding that there's an appetite for it. So for me, metal is far from dead. It's very much alive and kicking.
Pay to play, incidentally, I mean, that is something that for anybody younger, they may not remember this, but the lineups were definitely not as cohesive as they are today. I mean, I've said this on the podcast before, but I remember seeing Slayer at the London Astoria being opened for by a band called Ellis. And I don't think you could possibly have chosen a worse band to open for them. It was certainly evident that it wasn't Slayer that had made that selection. The fans were not very keen on seeing them. And yeah. I mean, I didn't care for them very much, but at the same time, you also can't put a band that is that ill-fitting in front of a Slayer crowd and then think, okay, everything's going to be okay. It's a great opportunity for them. You may as well have stuck fucking Kylie Minogue in front of Slayer. she would have had a better run of it than that. But I mean, a lot of it came down to the fact that, and I know this for an absolute fact, promoters were being paid, venue owners were being paid to have certain bands consistently opening for bigger acts. Yeah. I shan't name names because I don't want to cause you any grief. But I mean, there was one particular band that, I mean, I'd say over a 2-year stretch, I saw them open for about 5 or 6 different bands. Couldn't be further from their style of music, and they were booed off the stage roundly every single time. It was the worst thing that could possibly have happened to them, but somebody was clearly passing some cash around.
It's sad. That used to be the industry. I don't know of any cases where it's happening today, and I hope it really isn't. But yeah, that was part of, I guess, the growing pains that the music industry went through. Labels had money, bands had money, agents had money, and it was easy to throw that around. I can certainly talk from experience. We've never had that discomfort conversation, and nor would we. A band's got to get their position on the stage, not through anything they do necessarily to sort of massage us. Quite simply, are they going to sell tickets? Are they good enough? Do they fit with the bill? So when you're creating a lineup, you've got to kind of look at where that lineup's going to go for that day. Will that band work under that other band? And everything's got to be a complement, because especially if you're selling day tickets as well, you want those day ticket holders to get value as well as the weekend ticket holders. So yeah, I mean, being clean, doing what we do, I think is more crucial now than it's ever been. And the fans will smell it a mile off, if you're kind of doing that. So we've got Bloodstock, we've got the Winter Gathering that we kind of we started last year back up at KK Steel Mill as well, and that's a bit of a nod to the indoor. And it's important that lineup also sort of works. The lineup's got to work. So there's no free rides in this. A band will get a show based on, are they good? Do they know what they're doing? Can they put a show on? But we do pride ourselves as a festival in giving bands opportunities, and we've done that over the years with some of our headliners, where they've probably never headlined a festival in the UK before. And we'll give them that headline slot because that's where they deserve to be, and it's that stepping stone for them to headline bigger festivals in years down the line. You look at Sleep Token. We had Sleep Token on our second stage. 2 years later, they're headlining Download and selling out arenas. So having those platforms to sort of step across, I think is absolutely critical for a band. And certainly being that event that offers them a bit of recognition and a bit of a footstep to stage 2 is again heartwarming for us because you're part of that process.
Well, I was going to ask you with Metal to the Masses, of the hundreds of bands that have gone through that, have gone on to play at Bloodstock, who are the names that stand out to you as the biggest success stories, or the ones that you're the proudest of?
Well, I mean, I'll give you one example. Band called Seething Akira, who we saw a post from them the other day. They've just gone through 1 million streams on one of their sort of recent releases. And I think when you've had a band that's kind of come through them out to the masses and then been on the elevator to those stages, but they've got a hard working ethic as well, and that's the important bit. It's not what we do as a festival to say, oh yeah, they're there because we help them get there. They're there because they've worked hard to get there. That's the reality of it, and we're just part of the mechanic that they've used to do that. So seeing bands like Seething Akira and others that have just done so well, that have come through that journey process, and there's too many to sort of mention. I don't want to pick out one or two of them, miss 3 or 4 that are equally as good. But those bands know who they are, and there's opportunities for every other band to come through. And let's be honest, look, everybody starts somewhere. Everybody has that conversation when I was a kid, I remember seeing AC/DC in the back room of such and such, playing to 10 people. It's kind of, every band has to start at the beginning. No one kind of gets out there into, right, new band, let's go and do an arena. That's the dream. The reality is they've got to earn the stripes, and to do that, they'll sort of use whatever stepping stone they can help get that along the way. And if we're one of those stepping stones, and we can help that band become that next big thing, fantastic.
And it's so absolutely essential, because we were talking about pay to play, a bad thing, a bad vestige of the old days. One thing about the old days that was very good was that there was much more of a handing over of the torch. There's the famous story about Skid Row taking Pantera on tour with him, Ozzy Osbourne taking Metallica on tour with him. Those were moments where the torch was handed down. You don't see a lot of that nowadays. And I think that definitely hurts the pipeline of potential headliners that could be enough of a draw to fill out a 50,000 capacity outdoor venue or headline a festival and ensure that festival is sold out.
Yeah, I think you're right. We see it all the time. You're seeing bands at the moment and there's quite a few that have done this. Final ever show, farewell tour that lasted about 18 years. It's not as clean as it used to be, and it's a bit of a shame, and I wish it kind of was. Maybe a few bands will hear this podcast and they'll decide, actually, that's a really good idea. Let's do that. Let's take bands down and tour. That's the whole point, isn't it? But I think it's for those bands as well to put the legwork in to get on these tours. There's a band called Dead Label from Ireland. Love the guys to bits, and they're a great band, young emerging sort of artists themselves. They've been out with Gojira. They've got a relationship with Mr. Mustaine from Megadeth, and sort of they're putting themselves out there to be recognised and be known. And the hope is that they'll get where they need to be. But bands need to do that legwork as well.
Well, if I was Seething Akira, I'll tell you right now, I'd grab the bull by the horns and announce my farewell tour today.
Right,
as advertised by Adam Gregory.
Not always a good idea.
Who excites you in the scene right now? Because I totally agree with you, by the way, and I've spoken about this many times. I think anyone that says the metal scene is dead and there's nothing exciting coming out and everything is, everything sucks, whatever, however you want to frame it, I think they're just dead wrong. They're not looking at the right things. They're not listening to the right bands. But who, when you look at the scene, when you look at bands that are coming up, who excites you?
Well, bands like we had them headlining the other year, Architects, Partway Drive, bands like that. They've got, it's not. I had this conversation with somebody yesterday. Metal bands are very theatrical, and when they're theatrical in the right way, it adds to everything, and they're incredible. Look at Gojira, with what they did with the Olympics and everything else. These are bands that we've had headline Bloodstock recently, and for me, they're on that sort of run, if you like, to sort of superstardom. I mean, some of them are there. Some of them are sort of, well on the way to getting there. And I think, if they're going to take over the mantle from the Iron Maidens, the Metallicas, and Slipknots and everybody else, people have got to give them the opportunity to be heard, be seen, and be supported. There's so many out there, I think, at the moment that are trying. But it's difficult because I think the metal world as well can be very unforgiving at times. It doesn't fit within the dynamic of the exact genre you like. I've seen a lot of people very closed off to music. I will listen to anything and everything and give everything its chance. I have my favourites, and my favourite by far is metal and heavy rock. But I've got a very broad taste in music, and I've got, depending on how I'm feeling emotionally, will determine what I want to listen to. If I go to the gym, it's going to be heavy metal. If I'm, trying to chill out upstairs and, like 40-degree heat everywhere in the UK, I want to listen to something a little bit more relaxed and a little bit more calm. So,
Romantic night in with the significant other, dear side.
Yeah, might be okay for me, maybe not her. But yeah, so it's. I just think bands themselves, they're out there. There's plenty of them out there. It's just a case of people discovering who their favorite is and giving them the support that they need. Buy the merch, go to the shows, support them at the festivals that they're coming for. But speak to the festivals as well. Interact with the socials, request bands you want to see, because the festivals do actually go through the social media and the comment section and see if there's an overwhelming, we've got to get that band. And if there is that, they do try. We certainly do try.
It's interesting too. I think it's rare, but it's very special when you spot it. There have been two bands that stick out in my mind as bands I saw play in very small venues, and you could just tell something was really special about these guys. Mastodon was one. I saw them at the Underworld to a half full venue, and I grabbed my friend by the arm, and as they were playing, this was during the Remission release period, I said, I guarantee you this band's going to be fucking massive. And sure enough, a couple of years later, they selling out 3 nights at the Brixton Academy. Orbit Culture is another one. I saw them at Inferno a couple of years ago, and even though they're not necessarily my thing, just watching them, I was like, this band's going to be fucking huge. If they get the platform, they're going to be massive. I know you guys have them playing with you this year. The one I dread to say it because I don't want them to change, but I do think Mysterium out of Iceland have the potential to be and in terms of black metal, there's something incredible about them. Like I was saying to you earlier about my wife not even being into metal, she's seen them with me twice, actually 3 times, and all 3 times she was like, that is amazing. I don't even like this music. I don't know what they're saying. Most of what you listen to just sounds like a load of noise to me, but that is amazing. And then that's how something very special is going on with that band.
If you can touch somebody that isn't into the music to the fact that they turn around and say something like that, then absolutely. That's your yardstick. I'd probably take us every show you ever go to moving forward. Maybe she's going to be that Midas touch that sort of is the discovery of the new thing.
But to say she may well be. But you mentioned music across other genres, right? And we were watching a Fleetwood Mac documentary the other day, and I turned to her and I said, like, it is. You don't always think about it, but when you stop and you consider how many people from so many different persuasions, backgrounds, musically, with so many different musical preferences, will hear. They'll hear basically any Fleetwood Mac song, but certainly anything off Rumors, and they'll go, that's fucking brilliant. I mean, including me. I know some of the hardest of hard black and death metal dudes. They hear Fleetwood Mac, fantastic.
Yeah, I think Fleetwood Mac's a different type of band, isn't it? They sort of touch the soul. And I think with their music as well, we've all heard it, whether we know it or not, especially if we've ever watched, sort of Formula One, with the chain melody out of that. It's everybody's kind of heard it, but didn't probably realize they've heard it. And then they hear the song and think, oh, it's a song, it's brilliant, I love this. They listen to more of it. I grew up with Fleetwood Mac because my dad always had them playing in the studio, along with, your Def Leppards and your Bon Jovis and your AC/DCs and Marillion and Deep Purple and, Ozzy and everything else. So you kind of, from your childhood, you hear this stuff. And I think I think it's tough now because everything's downloads, isn't it? Let's be honest. Bands don't really make it unless they're touring, unless they're on sort of shows. And that's where they're making the money. They're not making it from record or album sales anymore because they're not paid enough from the platforms, I think, regardless, unless they've got sort of stupid amounts of downloads. So to be able to sort of listen to bands now, I think actually is something super special. The bands out there still pushing the numbers out there, the tracks and everything else. I think that has to be applauded because they're having a tough time. And if they're still doing it, especially for young bands that are trying to get themselves out there, all credit. I think it's fantastic that they're actually doing that and not giving up because they've got a passion for something. So I think bands generally nowadays tend to have more passion than probably ever before because they have to have, because it's not an easy payday for them. Let's be honest.
The thing is, on paper, you would look at, the prevalence of social media and all the channels you now have available to you to get your music out as, technically speaking, it should be easier for a band to make themselves known, make themselves heard. It isn't. It's harder because the noise level is so much more now. There's so many more bands. There's so much coming at people all the time. It's very, very rare, as you say, for a band to really stand out. I think even if you think about the early 90s, you know, somebody could put out a record that was very unique for that particular style of music, and it would get everybody talking, and it would be in every single magazine and on every single, I mean, there weren't forums, but the zines, the magazines, the tape traders, they would all be into that band, and it would be the Vogue band of the moment. You don't really have that now.
I think you hit it on the head, though. You've said exactly what it is. There's too much noise now. You know, back in the 70s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s even, you know, you only ever heard the bands that were picked up by the labels or the radio stations, etc. There was probably the same amount of bands then as there is now, maybe a little less, but they'd never had that opportunity to be heard. Whereas now, you're absolutely right. They can put it onto social media and streaming and, you know, all these different platforms, and there's so much of it. It's super difficult to sort of try and sort of decipher your way through it. And now you've got the added insult, in my opinion, of AI bands. You know, and I think that's I hate it. I really do. I don't know. Some of the songs of these AI bands are amazing, and you think, you know, it's brilliant. Then you realize it's AI, and you go, "Oh my god, I hate that," because I think it's taking a talent away from people that actually have a talent. You know, I want to listen to something raw. I want to be able to watch at a festival. I don't want to watch an AI band on a screen. I want to watch a band at a festival doing the guitars, doing the vocals, doing the drums, doing the bass, and you know, in my case, triangle, whatever it might be. You know, to sort of be part of something. I don't think there's any discernible talent in AI bands, and I would never pay to go and see an AI show of any sorts in that respect. But I think that's hurting new bands as well, because they've got that to compete with in a very, very busy marketplace. And that's tough.
A busy marketplace, and perhaps, and I might be wrong saying this, but perhaps a younger audience that doesn't place the same level of value on music that you and I do. We came from an era where you physically handed over cash to buy a CD or record, or, you know, we still do for T-shirts. But I mean, there was a sense of discovery. I remember going to HMV in Oxford Street for the first time after I moved to the UK, and it was, I mean, literally paradise. You know, you were going through the shelf, and you could, like, you know, what am I going to spend my £50 that I've got on me on for the, you know, and that's, by the way, £50 to last me for the next 3 months. So you'd get the one CD or the two CDs, and you would literally, that's all you'd listen to, and you'd mull over the lyrics and you'd look at the artwork. People do not connect the same level of value to music anymore. I think the one glimmer of hope I see is the fact that the youths are starting to, well, certainly my daughter is collecting vinyl now. So I kind of see, and in her case, I encourage that connection to physical media. But a lot of other people just don't give a shit. I mean, to them, an AI band, as long as it sounds kind of like the kind of music they're into, that's fine by them.
It's convenience. It's convenience listening. You know, and I think you're right. You know, people need to sort of take a moment and stand back and think, hang on a minute. If they don't listen and they don't support these bands out there, and they just switch into an AI model of listening, music's dying. Music will die long term. You know, it's the support of the fans, and it's the support of fans going to festivals to see live bands or gigs and shows, whatever it may be, not just festivals. That's what's going to keep the music industry alive. And I think at the moment it's super vibrant. You know, shows are selling out, festivals are selling out, gigs are selling out. There's tons and tons of gigs, etc., out there. But we have seen a decline since COVID of you know, hundreds of festivals in the UK. Of differing genres, not just, you know, metal and rock, completely across the board, because there is an element of some of those haven't been supported in the same way. I just think the metal and rock world is super well supported at the moment, because it's a lot bigger than people think or give it credit for, and that's fantastic to see. But yeah, for me, AI can do one, if I'm brutally honest with you. You know, it's not my thing, and again, maybe that's because I'm an old fart, but who knows.
Where I land on it is a incredible productivity tool if you use it correctly. I think, I mean, again, in my day job, I deal with this constantly. I believe that in time, the people that will become in a corporate setting, you know, in a work setting, that where AI will be effective, and the people who will be effective at using AI will be people that direct it in the same way that they would direct somebody on a team. You would just treat it as a member of your team. But as a replacement for anything creative, I mean, you know, you talk about music, you start to see an increasing number of these video clips being circulated, and people go, Hollywood's dead. Hollywood might be churning out crap, but I certainly don't want to replace it with an AI video.
No, not at all. No, I completely agree. I think AI's got its place in medicine, discoveries for cancer, discoveries for diseases, because it's got an ability to probably look and delve further and more pragmatically than, let's say, the human brain currently has. So I think in that element, it's got huge benefit potential. Still needs to be verified, because we've seen cases of where AI has been less than honest, let's say. It's taken the truth and molded it to fit the dynamic. But I think, with some research, that's where it sits, and that's where it has a place. ChatGPT, I've seen so many, emails come in, and you just know they've ChatGPT'd that. So I'm not really getting a bit of
if you see that double hyphen, then you know it's ChatGPT.
Yeah, so it's like, okay, who am I talking to, you or the computer?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's got its place, but it's not got a place for me in the creative world, as you've said. I think the creative world needs to be creative, and it needs to be, us that do that level of creation, because I think that's where the passion sits behind it, and that's where the realism of what you're watching and what you're listening to is. Somebody's played that note, somebody's sang that vocal, and that means something.
Yeah, I agree. I know we're at time. I want to bring this home with one very, very tough question for you. So, have you seen the Woodstock 99 documentary on Netflix, and how much trauma did it cause you, if indeed you have seen it?
You know what? I did watch that when it came out, and you're watching it in complete and utter disbelief that anything in the scope of what they did was allowed to even happen. They put a show on, and I've seen other shows, like there's the other one that some lads tried to start a festival over on some exotic island somewhere, and
was it Fire Island?
Fire something or other, yeah.
Or Fire Festival, sorry.
Fire Festival, and it's just, it beggars belief that they've been allowed to get away with it, and they think they went to prison. They came out and tried to do it again, and it's like, really, guys? Where's your level of credibility with it? But yeah, Woodstock, I think, was just a shambles from start to end. Sorry, it everything that could go wrong went wrong. And as an event organizer, I know that myself and every other event organizer that watched that was just probably sat there in disbelief that any of that happened, because all of that could have been easily avoided just through proper planning, proper teams working together and doing what needed to do, and proper controls in place. I think the venue was wrong. I think what they did with the water, the prices they were charging for it, there wasn't actually any running water as such for the number of people, the mismanagementing the crowds. Yeah, it was just an absolute, pardon my phrase, but shit show.
Yeah. And quite literally, it was quite literally a shit show.
It was, no festival promoter would want to be associated with that level of ineptness, and that's I can't say any more than that. It was horrible. It was a horrible watch for for us who put a festival on, and we all said the same thing. You sat there with your mouth open. Yeah, it's like, oh, really?
I've always been like morbidly obsessed with it, because I was 19 when it took place, so it was very shortly before I moved to the UK. So I kind of feel like it was saying farewell to my adolescence in a way. Yeah. And I think that's why I'm so fixated on it. It's kind of a cultural turning point for me. But as you say, it's an incredibly it's unfucking believable, actually. I will say this though, and I have mentioned this before on the podcast, even though predominantly what I listen to is death metal, black metal, to this day, I cannot not watch the Limp Bizkit performance and not just be in amazement at the level of energy and like the intensity of that performance. That was fucking astounding.
Well, Fred fed off that, didn't he? And he fed off that. I don't think he knew exactly everything that was going on. He just saw a crowd going nuts, at that kind of moment, I guess, and obviously he's found out a lot more since the show. But yeah, he's a great performer, and he was at Download recently, and again, incredible performance, incredible show. Everybody loved it. The energy. My daughter went, and she stayed. I sort of getting old, so I went home a bit earlier, but she stayed for the whole of Limp Bizkit, and she just said that, and she's seen loads of bands, loads of acts all across the spectrum of different genres, and she said by far that was probably my best ever show I've ever been to. She's only 25, but she's done more probably gigs and shows than I've done in my 50 odd years of circles around the sun. But to have her come away from that, from a legendary artist like Limp Bizkit that's been on the circuit for quite a while, and she says that's the best act she's ever seen, just for the raw emotion and power and how sort of buzzed and hyped the crowd were. And she managed to get right to the front of the queue of the pit, so she was on the barrier, but was completely blown away by the whole thing. So he knows how to work a crowd. You know, he's a great performer, puts on a great show, and you know, all credit to him.
No question. Adam, thank you so much for your time. This was an absolute blast. I know you're a busy guy, so I appreciate you giving me over an hour of a day where I'm pretty sure you don't have an hour to spare. But I wish you all the very best for the 25th anniversary, and I really hope our paths cross again in the future.
Yeah, that'd be great. Much appreciated. Thank you for your support.
To the very end.
Thank you to my guest this week. You just heard Adam Gregory, director or one of the directors of the Bloodstock Festival that gets held every year in the UK, celebrating their 25th anniversary this year, and long may it continue. If you have tickets to go to Bloodstock this year, you are in for a treat because the lineup includes Biohazard, Sepultura, Lamb of God, Judas Priest, Body Count, Testament, Stampin' Ground, and of course the band you just heard, Trivax, who will be performing on the Sophie Lancaster stage on Sunday the 9th. If you don't have tickets yet and you do want to go, I believe there are some day passes still available. I think all of the camping tickets and stuff, that's all been sold out. But if you want to get a day pass, just having a quick scan of the website right now, there are tickets available. I do want to say a massive thank you to Adam. This conversation came together really quickly. It actually stemmed from me seeing a... let's just say an exchange he was having with some discerning punters on Reddit. And I've always wanted to speak to somebody who is involved in a festival of this size. I'm just generally very interested in the business side of things. And I figured I would reach out to him. And he very kindly agreed and gave me an hour of his time. So thank you to him. Like I said, make sure that on that Sunday, if you are at Bloodstock, you get down to the Sophie Lancaster stage to catch Trivax. I'm sure regardless of how your weekend pans out, you're going to have an absolutely sensational time. My friends, still lots more to come. I am welcoming back the Reverend Karl Hikara for the Weekly News Rant. But before we get to that, we have some Unsanctioned Filth. This is a band who, frankly, have been long overdue the Unsanctioned Filth spotlight. But as I explained to them on email, I do have a bit of a backlog. That being said, I heard this band a couple of days ago as I was making my way through my emails. Absolutely loved it. Figured I needed to share it with you as soon as possible. It is a black metal project based out of Northumberland, right here in the UK. They're called Unto Thee, and this is what they sound like. basking in the glow of the Unsanctioned Filth spotlight this week. That is Unto Thee with We Were Fire. I actually included the video clip for the song if you're watching this on YouTube, and that video clip was selected to be featured at a short film festival, so very well done to them. Very much looking forward to hearing more music from these guys at some point down the road, and it is nice to see, as this podcast has been going on, that whilst I don't necessarily have the level of sway, the level of clout that Metal to the Masses has, a lot of the bands that I have featured on the Unsanctioned Filth Spotlight have gone on to be signed and have, continued to make music and do some really interesting stuff. So if you are in a band and you're unsigned, you want to be featured on the show, drop me a line at intothenecrosphere@gmail.com. You can also hit me up on Instagram or Facebook. You can get to me through the website, intothenecrosphere.com. And if you send me your stuff and I like what I hear, at some point I will feature it on the show. I know I am somewhat behind as far as clearing out the backlog is concerned, but as the Unto Thee folks have just found out, I will get to it at some point, and I will feature you on the podcast. Without question, you'll also be featured on the website, so you get to live in the Hall of Fame forever after. If you are new to the podcast, you might not be aware of this yet. Even if you are, it's probably worth reminding you, I am a card-carrying member of the Horsemen of the Podcasting Apocalypse, a group of content creators dedicated to filling your week from Monday to Sunday with the very highest and best in quality, free entertainment. So if you like dark stuff, metal, horror, whatever it is, make sure that you check out Horrorwolf 666 with Brandon Legion on a Monday. Of course, Into the Necrosphere with yours truly every Tuesday. On a Wednesday, we've got a double shot with Mike Hill hosting Everything Went Black. Cheyenne from Trivax hosts Iblis Manifestations. We also have on a Thursday the Necromaniacs podcast. That is hosted by Mike Hill, co-hosted by the Sheriff Mike Scondado and the Professor Jeff Kashid. And then we have the first of two installments of Soul Knox. That is hosted by Karl Hikara, a sinister journey through the dark, the weird, the arcane, the occult, and the esoteric. And Karl joins me for the Weekly News Rant very shortly. But before we get to that, a very quick public service announcement. If you're one of the army of simps who wept profusely at the Dogma lineup dramas, then the next hour is going to hurt your feelings, which means it's probably better that you hit the bricks. Because this is my Weekly News Rant.
Round them up for judgment. And hang them where the world can see.
I am delighted to welcome back the Reverend to the Rant. How's it going, my brother?
Not too bad, how are you, brother?
Yeah, no, I'm okay, thank you. What have you been getting up to since last we had you on here?
Not too much, work and all that kind of stuff. Most recently, I was playing Red Dead Redemption 2 finally after I'm 8 years late to the party, so that sucked up. I got real immersed in it, sucked up the last 2 weeks. Played that.
No, that is a life stealer. There's no question about it. I was going to say to you, when you finally managed to tear yourself away from Elden Ring, or now Red Dead Redemption, I've got the game for you. Path of Exile 2. Absolutely fucking fantastic. They only have the beta version up now. I think the official release comes out at the end of the year. But I've been playing it with my daughter, actually, because you can do, two-player on the same screen, two-player co-op.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I've been playing it with my daughter, and it's absolutely fucking fantastic. I really like the first PoE. I think it's a Diablo-like game, but it's a lot better and a lot deeper than Diablo.
I know they have
two. They've added some elements from, I would say, from Elden Ring. So it's not a lot. It's quite subtle, but there's definitely some elements added. So, it's not just, move to the next part of the screen and just hold in your fire button. You actually now have to seriously think about it. And it becomes especially fun when you're playing it with somebody else.
I saw some stuff about the first game that the skill tree stuff was pretty really huge, almost too much. Is it still the same way as this one?
They went even bigger.
on PLE2. So, but I tell
Yeah.
you what, we should potentially do when the full release comes out. I mean, I've never done this before on Into the Necrosphere, but maybe you and I have us a game stream and see if a couple of people want to join in, and we'll do a game stream and talk some shit on there.
Yeah, we'll have to figure out how to work that out on PlayStation.
Yeah, 100%. All right, let's start, as always, on metalstorm.net, the finest metal news website in all the land. There is a new single by the band Castle. Now, Castle is not a band I am hugely familiar with or actually have any degree of interest in. However, Marco sent me a note the other day saying how much he enjoys it. So I figured I may as well give this a listen. It says here, to taste another piece of their next full-length offering, Carry Chains, the Californian duo Castle shares the second single called Truck Grinder. I'm going to give that one 60 seconds rather than 2 minutes because I can already tell that I'm going to fucking hate the rest of the song. So I don't know if it's worth putting myself or the listeners through any more of it. What was your take?
Pretty much the same. Yeah, not a fan.
No.
I don't like it or get what the lyrics are about or the whole thing. Just I don't really get it. So it's not for me.
I can think of, I mean, like if I want to listen to music like this, then I'm going to listen to, I mean, it's not quite the same, but I would sooner listen to High on Fire or Wasp. I mean, I'd listen to L7 before I listen to this. I've said many times before, Bricks Are Heavy by L7. What a fucking record.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff like, just, I don't know, this doesn't sound good at all to me. Like, you know, I don't even, I guess they're trying to do retro-ish metal, but it's not good, you know. In my opinion, that's not good at all.
And they are, as I understand it, reasonably well known. But again, it's I don't quite know how, because I don't know what this brings to the table that would be of or that's new or interesting or different or unique. As you say, it sounds like a very intentionally retro band.
Well, you look at that cover, it's pretty retro, but kind of like modern filter retro, you know what I mean?
Yeah. By the way, I mentioned this to you before we started recording, but if my voice disappears or it sounds like I'm trying too hard to get a word out, I recorded vocals yesterday for a small section of a album that I shan't name just yet. Not my album, an album of a mutual friend of ours.
Yeah,
but I will tell you something. If you haven't done anything remotely extreme vocal wise for 5 years now, it's a bit of a strain on the old vocal cords, on the old larynx when you have to step it up.
Yeah, particularly if it's not something that you've like done a lot either, you know, because I mean you haven't.
I was in a band, but this was like 2001. So,
yeah.
So that was about it. Like 2001, I was in a band, but I haven't been in anything permanent or anything regular since then. So yeah,
makes it hard.
It was a little rough on the old vocal cord. So if I sound like Mark Lanigan, that's why. What's been going on with all of your various musical projects?
Yeah, so the new Black Flame Altar album, well, it's all tracked pretty much except for some guest vocal stuff that we're still waiting to get done. and then I got to finish mixing it. But our goal is to put it out later this year. We might send it to some labels, see if anybody wants to put it out, or might just be put it out on Bandcamp and see if anybody wants to put out a physical release. At least we haven't decided that yet, but I'm trying to get it like all mixed in the next couple months, so then be ready to go. Depending what we want to do, if we put out ourselves, it'll come out on Halloween. That's the goal. And at the same time, I've already pretty much written everything for the Antichrist Blood Scourge album, like just the guitar demos. We haven't like done the drum demos and everything yet, but that will be in the works for next year to release next year. And then we're writing something for HoloLens right now. Mike's started writing, and I wrote a song, and we're putting some stuff together for that as well for sometime in the future. So, keeping busy.
It is like between you, Drugoth, and Mike, it's an unbelievable amount of output that seems to kind of consistently get generated.
Yeah, we definitely put out quite a bit, and that our kind of collaboration with Mike has worked really well because like Mike's has guest vocal stuff for the Black Flame Altar album and some guest guitar. Actually, for what we're gonna do, he's gonna pretty much join for as a guitar player for Black Flame Altar for the next release, whatever that's gonna be. So that'll be cool. So we'll have 2 projects we're doing, all 3 of us, and then it worked. It was really cool, like having him do the guest vocals on the Blood Scourge EP as well. And I think it works out. Like for some reason, our collaboration's really successful.
Yeah, no, I think that's awesome. Well, again, it's a meeting of minds right here within the circle of the Horsemen. Obviously, just don't let the bum sniffers over at Metal Trenches know, because they have an issue with even calling ourselves the Horsemen. I have no idea why, but
well, yeah, like what's going on with all that? Like,
well, so I discovered this because somebody who follows me on Instagram sent me a note and said there were a couple of comments about you on the Metal Warfare forum, and the first was somebody seemed to take massive offense to the fact that I used to do the longer intros before episodes started. So I, and in those intros, I would introduce the Horsemen and all that sort of stuff. And they seem to have an incredible gripe with that. The other thing that they seem to have an incredible gripe with was my accent, which, I mean, I apologize for being born in South Africa and picking up the dialect of the land. The other thing they seem to have an issue with is how I speak. So the one guy compared me to an FM 100 presenter. I mean, I'm not presenting Into the Necrosphere in any other way than how I actually speak. And, certainly as far as like radio, I'm not going, hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of Into the Necrosphere. So, okay. and then one other comment that was made was, I mean, there was so much fucking stupid shit. They said that, like I said, they hate the idea of the Horsemen. They really hate Mike. I don't know why.
They hate Mike Hill or Mike's Hill. Yeah,
no, Mike Hill. So you were left unscathed. Mike Scandano was left unscathed.
That's surprising.
Cheyenne was they laid into him. Mike Hill they couldn't stand. Werewolves for some reason. I mean, there was like 3 pages of stupid shit about how terrible they are. It sounds like death metal for the gym. And then the other one was they said that that I'm egotistical.
Okay.
Which, I mean, Jesus Christ, I certainly hope I never come across that way. I get how you might feel like I'm egotistical if you're so low down that the majority of your time is spent watching the neighbor making love to your wife. Then I understand it. Maybe somebody with some degree of pride is going to seem like they're a little egotistical, but yeah, beyond that, no fucking idea.
This is interesting. So they hate these mouth breathers hate the Horsemen and everything. Is funny.
Basically, yeah. I mean, they seem if you
I wonder what I don't quite understand what their deal is. That's funny.
It's just
none of these complaints sound like valid complaints to me. So
Well, this is the thing, right? I don't mind criticism, but
Yeah.
if you if you're gonna say stupid shit like you hate somebody because of their accent, fuck, I
It
have no idea what to
automatically
say to you.
it automatically like is like there's certain things like that people can say, and it's just like it automatically like means that any criticism you have I can't take seriously because you're an idiot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
like it's one thing like if you have a hard time with somebody's accent, then that's one thing. But if you're like, oh, I hate his accent, fuck that guy, you know, like that's like it's bordering on racist or something. You know what I mean? Like it's like kind of crazy.
Well, dude, I think maybe some of that Belle Delphine bathwater they've been sipping that affects the brain apparently. All right, let's listen to. Speaking of accents, let's listen to guys with a very strong Australian accent. And I will be getting Jason Pepiat from this band back on the podcast at some point very soon. Psycroptic delivering a new single. This is the second one they are putting out off their new album. The album is called The Pulse of Annihilation. I really, really like that first single they put out. I'm a big fan of Psycroptic anyway, so to me, anytime they put out anything, I'm instantly interested. We're going to listen to this new single very quickly, and the song is called No Blade of Grass. What do you think?
It's really good. The like what I like about it, it's so it's probably more like technical and progressive type of riffing than like I usually listen to. But what makes it work really well is that it has catchy qualities to the riffs. Like there's a catchy chorus part. There's, you know what I mean? Like it's not just like noodling or some shit. It's like there's really good parts to every part. You know what I mean?
I agree. I said this when I had Dan from No Clean Singing on the podcast a couple of weeks ago. The thing that has always been great about Psycroptic is that they are super technical. They are quite progressive, as you say, but they never, ever get away from having every element of the band serve the song. And so, what you get with every single, basically every record they've ever done and every track they've ever recorded, there's always an emphasis on something that's that's catchy, a hook, a groove, and they obviously have the talent to pull that off in very fine style. Again, for reference, I think my favorite Psycroptic records would be Observant that came out in 2008. The Inherited Repression from 2012 is fucking fantastic, but I mean they've not ever put out something bad. And again, listening to the record just in terms of performance, I mean Jason Pepiat sounds great. that contrast that his vocals have against Jason Kaiser from Origin, who's also involved in this record. That sounds fucking cool.
Yeah, I like that.
Of course, we were talking about about Werewolves earlier. You got Dave Haley on the drums, one of the greatest drummers on the face of the earth, a guy that can play hyper technical, but he's got such a natural sense of groove, and it's he lends it to Werewolves, which makes them sound fantastic. And on Psycroptic, I think is where some of his best work comes out.
Yeah, that's all. I mean, it's really amount of talent in the band is pretty crazy.
It's fucking nuts.
Yeah,
it's absolutely insane. I mean, you got Joe Haley as well. Of course, he's in Bremelin, and he also does the production for all of the Werewolves records. So, yeah, just top to bottom talent. And like I said, I'm going to have Jason Pepiat on the podcast again pretty soon. So that gets a top notch for me, without a doubt. Yeah. I love it. I think anybody that gets excited about an Arcspire record or anything like that, just take a step back. Just go listen to Psycroptic. If you want to hear how tech death is done or should be done properly, Psycroptic is your band.
Oh yeah, I really like that part with the two vocals. That was like my favorite part of the song.
Yeah, I loved it. Yeah. Well, I'm a sucker for multiple vocalists on stage. I love the look of two vocalists on stage. I don't know whether you've ever seen Despised Icon, but like when they're on stage, just the whole vibe of the performance is so fucking cool. And so there's like a crazy, it kind of reminds me a little bit of like pro wrestling in the late 90s style energy. I just can't get enough of it.
Yeah. I never listened to them, so but
dude. You know where they turned me? I saw them play live, and it was a show that was one of those where I had a guest list, or I was on the guest list, and I hadn't planned on going. There weren't bands that on paper appealed to me massively. I think it was Unearth. I can't remember who else was on. I think Black Dahlia Murder were on that lineup as well. And so I went in, and Despised Icon were one of the first bands opening, and they just absolutely blew me away. Didn't know their music whatsoever, but when I saw them play live, my jaw was just on the floor. They are like one of those bands where as soon as you see them perform, you will be a fan. Doesn't matter what style of music you're into. If you have an ounce of testosterone in you, you will be a fan.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they blew on Earth away because that band's crap.
Correct. Yeah. Oh no, there's no fucking contest there. All right. Green Carnation are releasing another studio record in September. Of course, I had a conversation with Green Carnation last year when the first part of this trilogy came out. But it says here, a Dark Poem Part 3, the Messiah Complex, is going to be the third and final part of Green Carnation's Dark Poem trilogy. It'll be set free on September the 4th, 2026, via Season of Mist. The 4-piece outing was recorded at the Dub Studio. And then again, Metal Storm does what it always does and gives us a laundry list of all the credits. They've got a new single here called Unconditional Artificial Chemistry. So let's give this one a quick spin.
trusted friend. I am
going to pause there. You know what I couldn't escape as I was listening to this song, and I know that they probably only sound vaguely similar, but I kept thinking of Sentient Number 6 by Nevermore.
Yeah, I can hear that for sure. It's kind of got that. Although Sentient Number 6 is maybe a little bit more acoustic guitars and stuff going on, but it's pretty similar in a lot of ways. Kind of similar vibe. His vocals aren't too far off from some of Warren's vocals, so Warren's vocals.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean it's pretty good. The Green Carnation, one of those bands that I've always intended to get more into. Like I've listened mostly to like maybe their first couple albums, came out in like the 90s, you know, and of course it's really funny that of course like, you know, the main guy in Green Carnation is also like used to play bass in Carpathian Forest and played bass on In the Nightside Eclipse and stuff, you know. It's so utterly the opposite. You know.
Yeah, no, that is that is pretty crazy. Which is, I think, what probably threw me originally about the band when I first heard them, because they were quite heavily, and I don't know whether people remember this, but when this band first came out, they were quite heavily promoting it as a band featuring a member of Emperor and Satyricon. Like they really pushed that.
They did, yeah.
So you know, you switch it on and you kind of hear something that is completely and utterly fucking different. I mean, it's like very progressive, you know, hard rock. For the most part,
it's very similar to, you know, late mid-era Anathema. You know, like TMS, Wild Honey, stuff like that. You know, it's definitely you know, particularly the first couple albums, very much of that time. Which I like that stuff a lot, so you know, but they're not. I haven't really like listened to their whole discography or anything. So something I've been meaning to do at some point is actually give it more of a listen to their catalog.
Well, I can definitely recommend this this trilogy that they are busy with right now. When I heard the first single off the first part, A Dark Poem Part 1, The Shores of Melancholia, I didn't like it very much, and then when I heard the whole thing, it was one of those things where if you spend your time listening to the album end to end, it actually makes sense. And the song starts, even the song I didn't like as much, was like, okay, now actually I see where it fits into the bigger picture, and I'm enjoying it a lot more. I'll also say, you know, Hetel, who I interviewed last year at Beyond the Gates, and I did that listening session with him, such a nice guy. And, you know, a guy who's just so passionate about what they do. It's let's be honest, it gets easier to love the band when you've met the singer, and the singer is such a cool dude.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this has always been his passion, you know, the whole time. So
yeah. I am sad to report, though, because I know I've been saying throughout the year that I was going to attend, but I am sad to report that I'm not going to be attending Beyond the Gates anymore this year.
Oh, really?
Mixture of reasons. Number one, you know, with Paige being pregnant, it's a little bit harder for her to travel. And so what I don't want to do is go, quite honestly, I'm just not in the mood to go there by myself and spend a whole week there like fucking Johnny No Mates. Cheyenne and, you know, Cheyenne and his partner, they won't be making it. Katie's not going to be there this year. So, yeah, there's not a lot of folks that I would have known. And as much as last year, I absolutely loved every second of it. But you know, spending 5 days there by yourself, that's not going to be fun. So I decided it's a lot of money to go in any case. I'd rather do the right thing, stay here with Paige, make sure that she's okay.
Yeah.
And you know, live to go another day. I will definitely try and make the 2027 iteration of it. But yeah, I'll be giving 2026 a miss. I think it was also made easier by the fact that obviously Emperor or they are playing it headlining Beyond the Gates this year. They're now headlining Fortress next year, so it's not like I'm going to miss them.
Yeah, definitely. It'll be, you know, it's probably, you know, if you go next year, it's kind of like you're not going to be going so often that you get tired of it or something as well. So, you know.
Yeah, exactly. I do see some people on the socials though, and they literally go to basically almost every single festival running in Europe, at least by the looks of things. And I'm like, I don't know where you find the fucking stamina from to do this.
I don't know, dude.
I couldn't keep that up.
I barely have the desire to go to any festival, so like be around people for that long, like something like Beyond the Gates I really do want to get over there and to that festival. I really want to go to Steelfest as well. Those are like the two big ones I really want to get over there for. But even with that, like I'm not really I'm not like a festival person, like I don't really enjoy being around that many people for 4 days or something. Like I think something like Fortress is great because it's only 2 days. Like I think like a 4 or 5 day festival seems like maybe a little too long. You know what I mean?
Well, if a 4 or 5 day festival, I feel is long. When camping is involved, to me, that's an immediate no. I will
That's
never
immediate
go camping.
no.
I fucking absolutely hate it. I camped once, and it was the worst weekend of my goddamn life. So I'll never do that. The thing that's brilliant about Fortress is you can get as I've mentioned on the Fortress review video, you can get a really nice place to stay, very close to the venue. The venue is awesome. The people, the vibe, everything is great. There's normally a ton of good bands. You don't have to stay at the venue all the time if you don't want to. There's a load of restaurants you can go to, bars. Because of the seaside location, it does kind of feel like you're on vacation.
Right.
So if I could recommend you any festival, 100% come and hang out with us at Fortress in 2027.
Yeah, that would be cool. It'd be cool to get. I just want to get over to Europe as soon as I can, but it is kind of it's about getting enough money to get over there. You know what I mean? Yeah.
And also, obviously, there's the risk of old two-tier digging up one of your old social media posts and having you arrested upon your arrival at Heathrow. I want to ask you a question because this is something that the Legion have been demanding I do more of. They really love it when we talk about what we're listening to right now. And I know you're a man of discerning taste. So what in the last week have you listened to most?
I've been listening to a lot of Beast Milk and Grave Pleasures recently. Then before we got on, I was actually listening to some Queens of Stone Age. So, but
which Queens of the Stone Age album?
The first album.
Okay,
that's one I was listening to. I mean, I like all Queens of Stone Age albums, so I've been listening to them since I was like 14 or something. What else have I listened to? Let me look. Yeah, definitely a lot of Beast Milk and Grave Pleasures. It's been a big thing. I'm trying to remember other stuff. I haven't listened to too much newer things. Like, to be honest, like I listened to that. What is that album? Where is it in my list? I sent it to y'all. Sent it to you guys. Just disappeared.
Rodrigo's new record.
The Forsman band.
Oh yeah. Well, I will forgive you for not even attempting to pronounce the album title.
Well, the album disappeared from my list on here. Yeah, the Forsman Brenda Rustier og Fuhrandi Fjordur, something like that.
Yeah, fucking amazing. I discovered. And I shouldn't say discovered because let's say I knew the album was coming. I hadn't paid very much attention. And then I was, I did what I typically do on a Friday, which is I add all of the new releases that look interesting to the long list. And, this one happened to come on after the album that I had kind of added prior to that. And I heard the first song. I was like, holy fucking shit, this is good. Arrogant Destructor. The album is called The Old Spirit Remains, and it was released by Satanath Records. The first song gives you an idea of why this is awesome. It's called Total Maniacal War, and it is fucking absolutely brilliant.
Nice.
They're from Birmingham, right here in the UK, and obviously, if you live in Birmingham, there's plenty of reasons for you to be angry and hateful. So, I mean, they actually have an album that they put out in 2020 called "No Fucking Mercy." But yeah, dude,
That's awesome. I'll check that out.
massively recommend this record if you haven't checked it out yet.
Another new release that I recommend everybody check out is can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Another new release I highly recommend is from the new one from Northumberland. It's the Vaferlogi is the band.
Oh yes, I've been listening to that as well.
Nice. The LD Goose. That just came out pretty recently. That album is sick as fuck. So
yeah.
Two really sick Icelandic bands that just came out recently, which is nice. I've been giving New Gravier album more listens,
which is a brilliant record.
Yeah, and the Permafog EP,
also brilliant.
Any other new stuff?
Are you as gobsmacked about the fact that Permafog is not signed to a record label yet? I have no idea how that's happened.
I don't know. It's crazy.
I mean, that to me is like, if you think about bands that are slept on, I would argue that is one of the most slept upon black metal bands on the planet right now.
Definitely. And then another thing I've been listening to is Holder quite a bit recently, because that new single came out and I really liked it, and then I was like listening to their older stuff too. So
yeah. No, I'm a fan too. I've got two others I'll add to the list and then we'll move on. So you and I listened a while back to the first single of the new Nargaroth record, and neither of us were particularly impressed. I will say, I strongly suggest you go back and revisit the album. The whole record is excellent.
Cool.
Much like Green Carnation, but just on the more, sinister side. It's one of those things where if you go back and you listen to the whole thing, the record makes sense. Terrible choice of a first single, because there are absolute bangers on the album and bangers that would have made people a lot more excited about the record. I feel that single has kind of made folks like ignore it a little bit.
Yeah,
but strongly suggest you go back and listen to it if you are one of those people. I mean, again, I kind of did it almost by accident, but Apocalyptic Steel is the name of the band. The album. Yeah. And I think it is superb.
I would have gotten around to it eventually, just because I'm a I'm a fan of Nargaroth in general, so I always check out the new albums. So, and he's been releasing pretty good stuff recently. So
yeah.
You said there's another album.
And this and everyone that listens to this podcast should know the record, and if not, then shame on you. Inside the Electric Circus by Wasp. My Wasp obsession continues unabated. I have I especially the first couple of records, I just fucking love them so much. The song King of Sodom and Gomorrah on Inside the Electric Circus, I dropped Swartolv a note and I said, if you ever do something again with Nocturnal Breed, you guys must cover this. It's like the fucking Nocturnal Breed anthem. I can't think of a song that would suit that band better. But what a fucking record.
Well, it's always a good day to listen to Wasp. That Wasp is definitely one of those bands I can put on pretty much any time, and that whatever mood you're in, it's perfect.
So On to some more music. Now, I actually saw this on Metal Storm the other day, and I thought, let me save this for when Karl is on. I know about the drama surrounding Dogma, but I have never in my life bothered to listen to the band.
Me neither. I
suspect it's going to be absolutely dreadful. However, let's listen and find out for sure whether or not our assumptions are correct.
The only reason I know anything about this was Boris. He did a video about the Dogma stuff, because he didn't know what it was. So he's trying to explore it, and I was like, this sounds like a pretty stupid situation. But yeah, I don't know what the music sounds like at all.
Yeah, well, I mean, Wyatt from Wyatt's Metal, he did a bunch of videos on Dogma, all of it absolutely outstanding if you haven't watched it yet. But I again, throughout all of this, I never bothered listening to the band because the whole idea, everything about it looked stupid to me.
Yeah, me too.
But I did when I saw there's a new song. I said to myself, me and Carl, we need to give this a whirl.
The song title is something special.
Well, the song title sounds like something that ChatGPT would have come up with.
Yeah.
So for those not watching and only listening, the new single is entitled "My Mat Recital." So it says here, Brazil heavy metal hard rock collective Dogma have launched an official music video for their newly streaming new single called "My Mat Recital." As I said, I fear the worst, but let's give it 60 seconds and see if we can survive.
Dark whispers rise in amber grace. My sun denies my blood, my face. Dusk Messiah prowls. He mouths my thousand thoughts, portrays their chants. Light breaks my fear. It winds my sand. Tugs on me near to lock me tight. Oh, light Messiah, your shoulders scheme. My son pariah, wouldn't with me. You tell them lies that you deny. You call it fate, my matricidal. Dark Messiah break.
I've got two observations. The first is that I think the next scandal that's going to erupt from this band is that they're going to find out that a very early model of ChatGPT wrote the lyrics, not only the song title, but it came up with the lyrics as well.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't know whether you saw some of that fucking complete and utter ridiculousness, because for some bizarre reason when I played the video, it had the captions coming up.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not the sound mind that came up with that.
No.
Frankly, it doesn't sound human.
No, wasn't there already something about some type of AI stuff with them as well already? So
I don't know. I have to look that up.
is this band popular? Like, I mean, I just don't understand. Like, it's so awful. Like, do people listen to it? Like,
Of course they do. If it's awful, there's a very good chance it has a massive audience.
just like, this is like worse than Evanescence. And that's saying a lot.
I think I would 100% agree with you. I mean, I was going to say my second observation is I would rather run into a wall until I pass out and die from fucking blood loss than listen to another Dogma song.
No, yeah, I'm good. I never need to listen to that shit ever again.
Fucking hell. But yeah, I mean, people are incredibly passionate about the band, and when the accusations started going back and forth, I mean, the dregs of society usually slither their way onto Reddit, and they'll share their pain and sorrows about their favorite ridiculous band. But there were folks that wrote entire essays about how when they first heard Dogma, they were so blown away by the fact that it was a what do they call it? Like a confident statement about female sexuality and fucking God knows what other bullshit. And
Well, I mean,
now their dreams have been dashed, and as I said, it's fucking terrible.
See, that takes a very distinct level of like, just, I don't know, like not knowing reality. I mean, that band, you look at it for 2 seconds and is made by people who are trying to, monetize. Like, you got a whole band of like sexy nun ladies. You know what I mean? Like, it's every aspect of it is obviously there. It's like not any different from a girl band or something. A girl group or
What's
boy band or something.
It's the Spice Girls of heavy metal. That's basically
Exactly.
what it is.
Yeah.
I tell you something. A pervasive issue that gets it doesn't really get spoken much about in the metal scene, but I certainly think that it exists. The simp culture in the wider metal community, it makes me fucking sick to my stomach.
Yeah.
It really does. The fact that any fucking and I'm not casting direct aspersions here, but any bimbo with a webcam can launch a YouTube channel, talk complete and utter shit, and they'll get 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 views overnight just because she's got a photo where she's mildly pouting and showing a little bit of cleavage. And that to me shows that a lot of metal men are fucking weaklings that cannot maintain relationships with women that don't involve an exchange of credit card numbers and money. And so they're desperate for any form of female contact.
Oh, I 100% believe that a big part of the male community is just doesn't know how to talk to women.
Yeah.
And it's like they're a lot of them can be very creepy. I can know this from women who are like around the metal scene or peripheral. Like a lot of these metal dudes are creepy, but in that kind of like I'm a nice guy, type of like creepy. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
like because they're like, a lot of them will like wait around for if they like here, like I know from a fact that like one of my friends, like when she and her boyfriend broke up, like she told me all these guys who pretended to be her friend or whatever, all of a sudden were like trying to like ask her on dates or hit on her, but it was like a bunch of vultures descending.
Yeah.
As soon as they knew she was single, it was like, and that's how the metal scene is with guys for some reason. Like it's kind of pathetic.
Mike and I touched on it one time that he was on the show, and the theory I think we collectively aligned on was the fact that, unfortunately, a lot of guys in the metal scene really bought into the whole vampiric fantasy, gothic romance side of the lyrics when they were young, and they have since deployed that as the blueprint for how they approach relationships, romance, etc. And so you get these situations where they almost become like they're like John Cusack with these fucking stereo above his head. The only difference is they're wearing a black trench coat and they've got like smeared makeup on their face. But it's so fucking pathetic, man. And somehow these motherfuckers need to be deprogrammed because they're giving the rest of us a bad name.
Well, definitely. And the thing is, it doesn't work. Like you can't be like that. Like, I mean, I can't say too much. I haven't been in a long relationship for a while, but at the same time, I know that I don't. If you have to have some, I guess, like here, like A, self-confidence, B, like I don't know, just like don't be a fucking simpering fool. You know what I mean? Like just be yourself. You know what I mean? Like don't like sit there and I don't know. You see all these comments guys do on girls' posts and stuff like that. It's like,
dude, it's unreal. If you ever want to laugh, just go onto any adult film actresses Instagram, and some of the stuff that you'll see is just fucking mind-boggling. As a matter of fact, you don't even need to do that. There's a girl I follow and I know through mutual friends on Instagram, and she will regularly post some of the private messages and the DMs that she gets. It's fucking unreal, mate. I mean, it's insane to me that the men that send these things are allowed to roam free in the streets. So again, to anyone who might be listening who doesn't know how this works, all of that kind of behavior, that doesn't get you the girl. That gets you a fucking restraining order.
Yeah, it gets you a ban.
Gets you put on the sex offenders register. All right, let's go on to some more music. Abyssal Rift release a new track. Death Doomers Abyssal Rift is streaming Sphere of Perpetuity, the latest new preview track from their upcoming sophomore record, Relics of Great Ash. Let's hear what this one sounds like. there. I did give that one longer runtime because it seemed to be taking its sweet goddamn time to get going.
Yeah, it was a long intro.
I can't remember whether you were on the show with me when we listened to the first single of this album, The Enlightenment There Was Never Will. And I do recall not enjoying that. I do feel a lot more positive about this song, but what did you think?
Yeah. I like this quite a bit. It reminds me of like Disembowelment. It's kind of got this like Funeral Doom quality to it. I'm sure it's I don't know, maybe at some point it goes into blasting and stuff, but it definitely makes me think of Disembowelment, which I really like. Like it's kind of like, you know, very not too far off from like some Evoken. You know, I think it's cool. I like it.
Yeah, no, me too. I think they did a lot better job. If I compare this to my recollection of the previous single, I think they do a far better job of building the atmosphere, the tension, the dynamics. I like the melody. I kind of feel like that beginning, maybe the first 90 seconds or so, there's a bit of a Black Sabbath vibe to me in that. And I really, and it was like, you know, Black Sabbath for the modern Death Doom age. And I think they do a really good job of incorporating that influence. So yeah, overall, much more excited about this single than I was about the previous one. That's for sure.
Yeah, I might have been on. I don't remember. So I don't really remember. I think I was on because the name looks familiar.
Yeah.
But I don't have any memory of what the song sounded like, so I'd have to go back and listen to it again. But I definitely like that one. So I mean, let's hope it's good. Oh yeah, not metal, but Chelsea Wolfe is putting out an album. She put out her singles. Looking forward to that.
I know. I've heard them both, and that's actually something I'm potentially considering going to. I think it's I think there's a festival called Arctangent or Arcgent or whatever the fuck it's called. It's happening in August, just up the road from me.
Oh yeah.
But I was thinking of getting a day ticket to be able to take my daughter to go and see Chelsea Wolfe play.
Oh, you definitely.
And I have heard those two new songs. Love them both. They're a little mellow for Into the Necrosphere, which is why I gave them a skip.
Yeah.
But it is good.
Have you seen her live? Because
I haven't.
She's great.
I haven't.
Yeah, I've seen her like I don't know, 4 or 5 times I think. So like, she's really really good live. The first time I saw her was for the Abyss, and I was back like a while ago, and that was with Wovenhand. That was a really sick show.
Jesus, that would have been incredible.
Yeah, that was that was a really really good night.
If you ever want to do yourself a treat, if you ever have access to a high end hi-fi,
Mm-hmm.
you know, even if you've got a hi-fi dealer down the road and you can convince him to do this for you, listen to the Liminal. The version or the song is The Liminal by Chelsea Wolfe. You know the song.
Yeah.
It's on the Unbound EP that she put out like 2 years ago.
Uh-huh.
Listen to that on a really well-appointed hi-fi. It will fucking blow your mind. It is such an incredible recording, and her voice is just, I mean, I've never heard anything like it.
She's incredible. I mean, like, the last time I saw her was at the Stanley Hotel right before COVID. It was 2019. And the Stanley Hotel, you know, where Stephen King stayed the night and got the inspiration for it. They, in their ballroom. And it was when she did the acoustic album. So it was acoustic set. So it was just her and her producer, her partner does the bass and stuff. And he just did a little bit of stuff here and there. It was mostly just her and acoustic guitar. And I've seen her play loud of a band. I've seen her do everything. And no matter what, like, it's unearthly how good she can sing. Like, I just don't know how she can sing that. Like, it's like perfect every time I've seen her, like her vocals. You know what I mean?
I'm just taking a look at what the set list was for that evening. Holy shit, dude. I am so jealous. I mean, she was just playing like all the songs of hers that I like: American Darkness, Birth of Violence, The Mother Road, Deranged for Rock and Roll. She did a cover of Night of the Vampire. Fucking hell, man! After the Fall, holy Jesus! And at no less than the Stanley Hotel.
Yeah, that was an amazing show to be at, and it was really cool. My friends bought me tickets, so I drove. Like, I paid for gas and stuff, and It was that was really incredible, and then it was like really cool driving back from there, and we got a little. It was like a little dust of snowing, but I drove the back way through the mountains in the night. You know, like after seeing her show, like there, I don't know, it's such an atmosphere, such a vibe. You know what I mean?
Fucking hell, no, dude. That's
Yeah.
I'm exceptionally jealous about that. I'm gonna have to pick your brain about it when we're done recording here. I don't want to turn this into the Chelsea Wolf Appreciation Hour. we got a song to listen to by up and coming record label that both you and I really like, Serpent Sun Records. They're putting out a new band called Heretic Cult Redeemer. And Heretic Cult Redeemer have unveiled 2 new songs, To Rust We Glorify and The Wondrous Strand of Time. We're going to go with To Rust We Glorify. It's out on Black Metal Promotion has put it out. And both will appear on the band's forthcoming studio record, Inoculum Chaos. That gets released on July the 24th, which is in about a month from now. Now, quick correction on what I said earlier. Heretic Cult Redeemer are not a new band. They put out their debut album in 2013. That was called Heretic Cult Redeemer. They then put out Kelevsma in 2018. They put out Flagellum Universalis in 2023. And then now, of course, Inoculum Chaos is coming out. I wasn't familiar with them before. I am now, and that is fucking brilliant.
Well, that's top notch for me. Like that, I really love that.
Undoubtedly.
I love everything about that. I love the fucking deranged vocals over the over the music. It just has there's something about it. He sounds like he's possessed, like he's just like some like I don't know, like crazed, like he's seen the Eye of Chaos or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just like, and the music, like the riffing is actually really sick. Drum sound, even with the kind of StreamYard sound, the drum sound was really good. The drum production, like,
yeah.
And I see that the drummer is also in a live member of Serpent Noir and Thy Darkened Shade, Acrimonious. So he's played with Nightbringer, so I have to ask Kyle because he obviously knows him. Yeah. I mean, oh yeah, members. Okay, the vocalist is also a live member of Thorn, which is a really, really good band. He put out haven't put out an album in a while, but yeah. I mean, so yeah, I really like this. I mean, I'm not surprised. Like, Serpent Sun, they're batting 10 out of 10 so far. Everything they put out, I love. So
I was just going to say, like, let's take a minute just to reflect on the fact that they have put out nothing but brilliant records so far. That Hierophany record that they released last year, I unfortunately slept on that, which is why I didn't make my list. But after you raved about it, I went back and listened to it. It is a masterpiece.
Yeah, the album is so good, and everybody I know who, particularly after I had the guy on the podcast, like a lot of people were messaging me like, I wish I've heard about this earlier. Like, this is so good.
They put out they have on their roster Chaos Sophia, Luna Mantra. Luna Mantra, I actually played a track off of their 2020 EP Psychosomatica on a Into the Necrosphere episode from way back, but I remember the name because I was so impressed with them.
The Chaos Sophia album is another one you need to, if you haven't really given it time yet, you need to get back to that one too. That one's sick as fuck. So beyond the Black Horizon, I'm definitely gonna do that. Feels to me like Serpent Sun Records are fixing to become the Norma Evangelium Diaboli of the United Kingdom. I definitely think so. I mean, it seems like that's his goal. I still need to get Richard on the podcast. We haven't been able to set a time yet. It'll happen when it happens, but it's definitely in the works because I'd like to kind of talk to him and but it seems like that's kind of his goal in a lot of ways because it's similar to Norma Evangelium Diaboli, where everything is united like around the kind of spiritual essence of what they're doing. You know what I mean? Like as opposed to just signing random bands,
Well, I mean, that to me that's an early entry into the 2026 contenders list. Undoubtedly, I don't have to hear the rest of the record. 2 minutes is enough to tell me I'm going to absolutely fucking love the rest of the thing.
Me too. Yeah, I'm excited for that album.
All right, we've been going for just over an hour now, so there's one other song that I wanted to check out before we head to the Porcelain Bowl of Reckoning. It's found over on the Democrat's Guide to Rock Music, and the reason I want to listen to this is, one, I do quite like Fuming Mouth, but secondly, Sheriff Scondado and I were talking about this band just the other week. It says here, Massachusetts metal and hardcore powerhouse Fuming Mouth has released a new single and music video for Cheat Death, the latest offering from the band's upcoming album, The Ringing Bell, due out on July the 17th via Triple B Records. No longer with Nuclear Blast, which is interesting. I wonder why that happened. Anyways, let's hear what Cheat Death sounds like. We're going to end up going through the entire song if I let it go much longer. It's only 2 minutes, 29 seconds long.
Yeah.
You know what's crazy is how fucking insanely fast time goes by. I had it in my head that Last Day of the Sun, which was their sophomore album that came out prior to this one, that it came out like a year ago. And I was just reminded as I looked on Metal Archives, it was 2023.
Holy shit! I thought it came out like the year before last.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, yeah, their band I didn't know about till you had them on the podcast, and I like that album quite a bit. It was like into contenders with that year, but didn't quite make my list. But like, I like this song a lot. This is good. Like, it's heavy and aggressive, and then I like it.
I think I kind of made the comment about I wonder why they're not a Nuclear Blast anymore. I don't know whether this is purely me speculating. I do feel Nuclear Blast, they missed an opportunity there a little bit, because when that record came out, I mean, it was quite a challenge trying to get the band booked for an interview. And then when I finally did, obviously I ended up having the whole band, which is fine. But Mark Whelan, the vocalist, because of his story around having and then surviving leukemia, that's such an inspiring story and such an interesting story to be able to talk through. And I don't think that, I mean, I was very disappointed with how that interview came out, because I feel like had he been by himself, we would have had a far more open and frank conversation.
Yeah.
And it was very surface level to me. I totally understand he's backstage, he's with a band. It's not a reflection on him. My point is, I feel like there was something quite inspiring and something quite interesting that should have been, if you think about it from a promotion perspective, that kind of should have been the engine behind the band, or behind promoting that record.
I also found it kind of odd that, like, Nuclear Blast should know better than like booking an interview for a podcast with the whole band. It's not like you're like doing like Jerry does, where you're meeting, like hanging out with them backstage before a festival and doing an interview with them or something. You know what I mean? Like, it's like probably a misunderstanding of what the format is 100%. Like, because even 3 years ago, it seemed like some labels just didn't understand podcasts. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think there's an element of that for sure. But I would definitely be curious as to why they left Nuclear Blast. I just looked up Triple P Records. Again, no disrespect to them, but it wasn't a label that I was familiar with. They don't have a lot of bands on the label. They've got C4, Combust, Dominant Force, Exhibition. Mostly bands I've never heard of. Almost all of them thrash crossover hardcore bands, which means I've got a list of bands I actually now want to go check out. But I mean, it might potentially be that one of the guys is involved in the label. Maybe they just, they're from Boston as well. So maybe Fuming Mouth wants to, pump some of the recognition that they have been able to build up into a new venture. And if that is the case, I think that's fucking cool.
Yeah, maybe you can use the new album as an opportunity to do a second chance and just try to talk to the vocals. Yeah.
No, I very well may do. Speaking of second chances, though, nobody who faces the porcelain bowl of reckoning ever gets a second chance. They certainly don't get a chance to come up for air. This, my friends, is the Swirly of the week.
No. Oh, you like?
All right. So when it comes to swirlies, the gift that keeps on giving, as you probably detected by now, is Reddit. And more even than the Is It Sketch subreddit, the threads that they have over at the RABM subreddit are a non-stop source of absolute fucking comedy gold. The latest one that I picked up was posted 4 days ago by somebody named Alchemist, and they say, "The algorithm is crazy out there, folks. Boomer Book figured out that I like black metal, and now like half of the sponsored posts on my feed are for outright fascist or fascist adjacent black metal, despite all of my actual follows being manifestly not fascist bands." Same on YouTube. As soon as it figured out I was listening to black metal, half of my suggested videos are best bands on sketchy black metal list and whatnot. That's a great idea for a video, by the way.
Yeah.
really sure the point of posting this per se, other than to be like, holy shit, more evidence that big tech is cooked. I'm going to take £10 on saying that never fucking happened, because you and I both follow a bunch of bands that this guy would probably fucking piss his pants over on a daily basis. And I have never received a single sponsored post where they said, go check out Argus Lent, or Big Tech commands you to dig into that new Goat album.
Yeah, no, I mean, here's the deal with this fucking idiot is that they're probably their idea of what's quote unquote fascist black metal is like probably like Marduk is like or Mayhem is like, you know, verboten. You know what I mean? Like this is somebody who probably only listens to like a very small part of quote unquote black metal. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, as I said to you, I personally don't think this ever happened. I've never seen anything like this. I don't think that there are sponsored posts. I mean, why would Marduk or Mayhem even need to do a sponsored post? I think they probably saw a fucking sponsored post by Bring Me the Horizon, with Bring Me Horizon using their edgy new logo. Oh my god, this is clearly fascist black metal. The thing is, though, the craziness doesn't fucking end, because there are a bunch of idiots that then comment and make quite clear why this person did the post in the first place. No Visor says, ditto, I've been getting all kinds of sketchy stuff. The algo's default is to serve far right shit.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the big thing about these guys is that none of them are saying what they're seeing.
Yeah, exactly.
They're not saying like, I see sketchy stuff like this. You know, these bands, they're both just, it's so vague that there's like, you're like, what are you talking about? Name one, you know, and as soon as you do that, they'll get defensive. Like, well, you know, like,
well, like,
you know,
all of the sketchy bands.
Yeah, and you're like, what bands? Tell me exactly which bands you saw. Like, and that's the kind of thing with these people. It's very easy to shut them down because they'll go like, they'll make some argument about something, and you're like, well, show me exactly what you're talking about. And as soon as you do that, they could just get angry because they can't think of something because they're just spewing bullshit. You know what I mean?
100%. I think the prize winner for the fucking dumbest comment, though, was somebody named Kanye Quest, who says, interestingly, I've managed to avoid sketchy black metal recommendations, but yesterday I've watched one Muay Thai video and now YouTube is harassing me with Alex Terrible's boxing match. Just that word, the use of the word harassing. Holy fucking shit. Do you think that somebody is literally behind the scenes like, oh my God, let's show this Kanye Quest who's boss. Let's ruin Kanye Quest's day. I'm going to give Kanye Quest a step-by-step instruction on how to avoid all of this terrible harassment. So firstly, you pull your index finger out of your anus, clean it off, ideally, before you take your phone, go on YouTube, and when you have a sponsored video by some fucking apparently far-right channel promoting Alex Terrible's boxing match, you go, not interested. And that half a second activity will spare you any further harassment. It'll certainly spare you the need to have to go on Reddit and share your pain with the rest of the commies on the RABM thread.
Yeah. I think it's partly not even sponsored posts that they're talking about. It's just like the algorithm of like what it shows you. You know what I mean? Like when you pull up YouTube, it shows you a bunch of random videos, right? You know, not all of them are sponsored. It's just what the algorithm has decided that you want to watch, you know, at any one point. Same thing with Facebook or whatever. So I think this is what they're talking about, but at the same time, like, you know, the thing is like it really doesn't make sense because, like, you know, I follow a ton of black metal bands just period, and I'll tell you, like, you know, on Instagram I see more bands post mostly like certain times, but the algorithm doesn't really. isn't really set to show you stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like they try to,
100%.
yeah.
I will say this person to me is exactly like the guys who get shit from their wives or girlfriends because their Instagram feed is suddenly awash with big booty babes. And they go, I don't know how this happened. I never look at women on Instagram. And it's like their whole entire algorithm, their whole entire feed is just like the same thing. Fitness influencers, you know, and women with the BBLs. The funniest thing to me, and this is a nice way to wrap it up, somebody writes, somebody named Acrobatic Jelly writes, the algorithms want you to react and engage to keep the platform active. Welcome to capitalism. Well, I'm better dead than red. So I'm going to be screaming that as I take Alchemist, Kanye Quest, Acrobatic Jelly, and all these fucking turds straight up to the porcelain bowl of reckoning, triple dunk their heads. And that, my friends, is the Swirly of the week. Yeah. Well, dude, that was, as always, an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for coming on. Great to
Always,
talk to you. Great
whenever.
to catch up. And
Any-
we'll do
anytime.
another one of these very soon.
Yeah, it's like me and Mike have started becoming I think Mike's been the most. Mike Scandato has been on the news rant the
No,
most
I
now.
think I think you're the most.
Because I'm still the most.
You're still in pole position.
Okay,
So,
it's probably me and him. Like we're like head and head.
yeah, definitely. But
Yeah.
I mean, again, I've said this to you before. Like so often when you and I do a news rant, I'll listen back to the episode. And then I'll be suddenly realize, fuck, it's 45 minutes in. I don't feel like listening, like I'm listening to myself.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
It's
thank you
always
very
good.
much, man. Great talking to you as always. And to everybody who has been watching, who has been listening, thank you so much to you as well. Have a fucking great week, and I will catch you again next Tuesday.